Dude, no
all right, boys. Here we are, dude. Welcome to this episode of the Crackdown. We've got a special guest, man. We've got G2 PERKZ here, all capitalized this year. I'm not sure why. I guess it's just the ego or something.
He can do whatever the fuck he wants. I don't know if anyone's aware of this right now. Like, he obviously secretly just runs G2. Like, Ocelot's literally just a puppet at this point in time. He just tells them, like, listen, you washed up old Cassiopeia one trick. You're going to go out there. You're going to pretend you own this org, even though I'll make all the power moves. By the way, can you just take my old rival and tell him he has to play AD carry now in the lane, while I just take all the resources and fucking hard carry the game, and then he just has to sit watching me win the championships because that's who I am. Checkmate. Game over after 2 years. How did he manage that?
I don't know. The guy you're talking about sounds like so fucking insane.
No, I want to know that, because here's the problem, PERKZ. This is the thing I don't understand, right? I don't actually think you're that next level, that you really did plan all this like chessboard move out.
I mean, it's too good. I'm not, you know.
No, but the problem is this, right? That's even more ridiculous, Dom, because the idea that he accidentally got his main rival, who was actually beating him at the time, to join him. Then he just like took a year off, but then got like way bigger rep by going to a different role. Then convinced his rival to swap to that role, which doesn't even make sense for him as a role, by the way. Just watch this Fnatic game. We'll get into it in a minute. Some ridiculous stuff. Then he goes back to his original role, now with no competition. And he's like, oh, right on. Now I've also got all the best players in Europe supporting me. Time for me to be the star of the show. Like, the idea that was an accident is more ridiculous than if he planned it.
No, what I've noticed about PERKZ is as his career, as his career has gone further and further, he's just getting smarter and smarter. I see his brain just expanding. He's becoming more and more of a five-head until one time he'll just fucking rule the entire fucking universe. So, I mean, I'd say it's fucking dangerous, man. You got to watch for this guy.
I mean, when you say it like that, yeah, I mean, it's true, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It is true, yeah.
I'm sure next he'll just take all his money and make like a PERKZ coin or something, and that'll become worth more than Bitcoin. Then he'll just own it, the entire LEC at that point in time. I don't know. Accidentally, of course. The whole thing just accidentally. Just always win accidentally, yeah. Must be nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great theory, guys. You guys should be like writers or something.
I mean, that's what we're doing here, man. We're here to talk to you, try to get the inside scoop. But I think we're going to do a little bit different stuff. I mean, normally we just hit on only LEC and LCS. But for a player like you, I think we're going to try to go like a little bit further back in your career. We're going to ask some questions about people that have potentially worked with you. So like Young Buck, for example, who's now coaching Excel, his relationship with you, like when you're in G2, like how much he actually did for the team. Obviously, there's been multiple different I guess interpretations of how he works within a team environment, what his role is as a coach. I heard in G2 sometimes he was just like a manager. He's the guy that fucking prepares food for you guys. And then in Fnatic, he's more of a coach. And now with Excel, he's supposed to be the genius of the world. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, maybe hit on last year, like how it went, how you paced throughout the year. Obviously this year, I talked to Grabs a little bit. And he said that, maybe your team struggled a little bit with burnout in the last year, how you plan to change that for this year, and then maybe a FPX series. So, yeah, we'll go into all that. And then if you want to, flame double lift at some point for his Senna gameplay, always welcome. We'll probably hit on that a little bit as well. But, yeah, I think that this will be a more all-encompassing episode than what we've done
I'm not sure he should be flaming anyone's Senna gameplay if you saw that Fnatic game. But, again, we'll get to that. That's all for later. We can get to that later.
Yeah. Yeah, so Thorin, tell us, where do you want to start? Where do you want to start with our boy PERKZ here?
Well, actually, here's the thing. I like to get people's, juices going, like to get people like up and ready and know it's going to be a real show. Like as Ray Lewis, the great NFL defensive back, used to say, it's a man's game tonight. Like we're not just, this isn't one of those PR interviews, PERKZ, where everyone's just chilling like, like that thing I saw recently where they were doing like a hype video for the LCS. So it's like Meteos just lying about how Sneaky's really good. So like, I don't know why everyone didn't pick him up. It's brilliant, isn't he? Like, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to talk about the real shit. So the first place I'd like to start is an ex-teammate of PERKZ's who still plays now, because I know there's no way Dom thinks the same thing about this player that PERKZ thinks. So PERKZ, you were one of the people when Trick came back to the LEC, when he came and joined Schalke again after his time off in Korea and Turkey and all the rest of it, right? You're a big fan of the guy, right? You used to play with him. You were always hyping him as a good player. What is he actually good at? Because I notice almost everyone I know who hasn't been a teammate of his basically flames him, mate. Like they actually think he's like overrated as a jungler. So what does he bring to the table? Give me your thoughts.
Well, when I play with him, and I still think he probably can do the same. Well, he was a smart jungler, so he always knew how to path to make himself the strongest in the game, and also play around the lanes at the same time. So it's not like he was ignoring lanes, but he was not. That was let's say that was when jungle was like giga mega OP, because that was like season 6 when jungle was at season 6 jungle was probably at its strongest ever, because he was like Grace, Nidalee, Kindred, and jungle was for sure like the most broken at season 6. And back then, I mean, he was back then he was for sure the best LEC jungler, probably the best in the West, right? But we sucked at MSI, so it was like hard to say, and even at Worlds, we were like really boosted, right? So it was hard to actually compare his skills internationally. And then the next MSI, he was getting flamed a lot in group stage because Youngbok was speaking him Nunu. And I know I was playing like Nunu with LeBlanc and Fizz with Nunu one game as well. I don't know, we had like this mid-jungle combos. They were not combos, they were just playing like champs that don't even make any sense together. And then in playoffs, when we actually started picking like Graves, Lee, Olaf, and champs that were like really strong in pressure game, he was really smurfing. So I always respected Trick a lot. I mean, he had his flaws, but obviously when you play with people for 2 years, you realize everyone has flaws, and no player is perfect, right? And I grew to acknowledge his flaws and play with him, right? Same as he did with me. So he's just very smart and knowing what to do, not only for jungle, but also lanes-wise. So he knows how macro game works, like how to play as 5, as a whole unit on every play, same play. And he knows how waves work. So he's just a smart jungler, I think. I think the one thing he was lacking before was probably like being super good on like champs like Lee Sin. I guess just Lee Sin mostly, because Lee Sin is just like, some players are just like really good at Lee Sin, you know? Like Yanks,
yourself,
example,
right?
is really, yeah, I guess like myself, right? I mean, my Lee Sin is kind of washed up now, but that's like a different story, right? So basically, I think that's just why he looked good on a good team and he looked bad on worse teams.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he looked pretty good on Schalke last year as well, I think. Like, Schalke made top 3 with him, and before that, they were really bad.
Yeah, there was only 2 good teams in the league at the time, but
and even I don't know, I mean, I guess for Schalke he made top 3. I mean, now it's SK, so I don't know. Now it's like different. I feel like it's a bit rough for them, right? But yeah, that's my take on him. I always thought he was really good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he was definitely a smart jungler before. Obviously, Season 6, Strength of the Aegis, that was when jungle was at its peak, but I feel like that was kind of a crutch to, like, masking a lot of bad junglers in competitive play, because you could just get so strong. If your lanes are ahead, you're just able to invade, you get your Strength of the Aegis stacked way faster, and then you just end up way stronger than your opponent. And his flaw has always been mechanics, right? Like his Lee Sin Elise was never top quality. When you look at somebody like, for example, Yankos played Lee Sin and Elise, you're just way more confident. I mean, Trick last week, man, he was having trouble hitting the cocoon with on Scuttlecrab. So at that point, I feel like he's just somebody who I think what upset is like he's just like kind of like a no hands player, and that's kind of the same way I see him now. And the meta right now, I think it requires you to have hands. Like everyone's playing Elise, Lee Sin, it's all early game. You have Olaf in the meta as well, which is not as mechanically challenging as the other ones, but you still have to like play it okay. And I just feel like in the type of team that he's in, he will just never succeed. It's the same reason why I always flame Xmithy in NA right now. I just feel like when you put a player that has weak mechanics but good game knowledge on a bad team, it's really hard for them to carry because they don't have any winning lanes. So the fact that they're smarter doesn't really do anything. They actually have to like fight situations and mechanically outperform their opponent, kind of like what Closer's doing right now in GGS. And players that are like older, that aren't known for having really sick mechanics, just aren't able to do that. So that's why I just don't believe him to be like a top.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, what you say, I think it makes sense. It just makes sense. Yeah.
This is what doesn't make sense to me, though. This is the problem I have, right? Is in general, the thing I hate about League of Legends is that because obviously every top team has a different player in all 5 of the roles, I feel like everyone who wins championships, there's always 1 or 2 players on those teams who get overrated because they're now called like a champion and like, oh, they must be the best at their role if they won their league or whatever. Like the same reason why Haunts used to think he was like the best top laner. He was like, but I'm winning every year. So yeah, all right, man. Yeah, there's other people on your team that are pretty fucking good. So the problem I have is this, is if I was trying to define what makes a good player, Well, here's the difference, right? It's true. You can definitely get, just like we're saying here, you can have someone whose brain's really good and they understand the game, but they don't have great mechanics. So they basically need, in this scenario as a jungler, probably need winning lanes. You can definitely get the other extreme. Like I used to think back in the day, that guy Peanut years and years ago was mad overrated, because if he had all the winning lanes, because he just like only had mechanics, he used to look amazing. He used to just completely spaz on the whole server. Everyone thought he was the fucking best jungler, but obviously he would have problems in like
who?
Peanut,
the Korean one.
Peanut. Oh.
Yeah. He was like the other extreme. But the problem I have,
to be honest, Peanut was so good. Like, I mean, I can't explain this because I played against him. You know, Peanut. I mean, you could also like, it's like, I mean, everything you can have. How is it called? You can have proof or like proof. You can make a discussion for everything. I mean, but Peanut, like playing against Peanut, was probably playing. It was like the hardest matchups I had in my life was playing against Peanut, because he was like. He was great. He was Graves, Olaf, and Lee Sin, and he was like so fucking good at all three. And at Lee Sin, like he was honestly like the best. I mean, at that time, he was the best Lee Sin.
Yeah, the best mechanics.
And he was like so fucking like when he got Lee Sin, it was so hard to play the game just because of how fucking good he was at Lee Sin, right? So, and it's best mechanics, sure, but it's also like the pressure junglers are not only mechanics. It's all about like knowing what lanes to go at and how to actually play the game as well. So it's like mechanics, but it's also just being good at the game, right? It's like if you have good mechanics on Lee Sin, like I don't know who, you're good at mechanics in solo queue, doesn't mean you're gonna have good mechanics on Lee Sin on stage. It doesn't go together. You need to still know what to do, right? So that's where my argument is for Peanut. That he was.
Here's my problem though: is I don't. If a player is only good when they have all these things, like they need 3-4 things to be the best player, then they're not the best player. They needed all those other things. Like my point is this: if you put someone like, I've seen it when that guy Clid from SK Telecom was on way worse teams in China. He was a monster. That guy maybe needs one winning lane and he could take over the whole game. If you have no winning lanes and you're just completely nothing. Which I actually think I'll give credit to Dom, actually. After watching Immortals this year, it has sort of sapped some of my faith in Xmithy. I thought he was better than that. Like, I thought he just didn't have to do it in Team Liquid, but he just can't. He can't do some of that shit. So my problem is, like, every team that Trick was in that didn't have PERKZ in was way worse. He looked way worse, mate. The problem is, right, you don't see in your head, PERKZ, where what you're doing helps your teammate. Like if he has, in your team, he always had 2 winning lanes. He had the best bot lane and he had your lane and you were going to the side lane half the time, diving all the time. So like that's amazing to play with as a jungler. Like I'm not saying he's a bad player completely. I just think he was overrated, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it could be right. I don't know. I mean, what you're saying, you have fair arguments, right? I'm not going to argue that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I actually
always used to think Jankos was the best, mate. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know he didn't win. Like he definitely had some fucking playoff chokes, but I always used to think he was the best jungler. Like I was a monster his whole career.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Jankos is really, really good. Yeah, like there is just not much to say against that. Jankos is for sure. I mean, he's probably the best player I've played with. So, and I've played with many, many good players in my career, right? So, just saying that alone is already like a big compliment, you know. So it's not really like a shame to be worse than Jankos. Honestly, like he's probably one of the best, like top tier jungler in the world, right? In a role where it's very, very stacked in Asia, I would say, but it's like really, really bad in the West. So it's pretty impressive, yeah.
Yeah. So one.
I think jungle is hard as well. So that's just to mention. I don't think jungle is easy at all.
Well, that's actually something we could ask you about because last week we had a discussion about this, right, Dom? Wasn't last week when you revealed that you talked to Grabs and Grabs says that like PERKZ could change to literally any role.
Yep.
And here's the thing, believe it or not, PERKZ, even though Dom is a jungler, I thought he'd at least be like, well, at least not jungle, right? So I disagreed. I think you could maybe do any role.
Yep.
I don't think you
and I said yes.
Like, I think jungle's a different type of way of thinking. You think you could do it if you had to?
Do you guys want me to be like? Do you guys want me to be completely honest?
No, just completely honest. Yeah.
I could easily be a top 5 jungler right now in Odyssey. Easily.
I think top 5? Like, could you be the best?
I mean, I could be the best in like maybe like 3-4 weeks. I think it would take
3-4 weeks. Holy shit!
It would take me some weeks to learn, I think. But I mean, I think jungle, because what I think about jungle, I think for jungle, what I would need to learn, let's say theoretically, I'm not planning anything ahead, but maybe, you know, if I was playing jungle, I would need to learn how to play champions mechanically, which are like much easier than mid lane. And I would need to learn which jungle actually, at what points do I win money when against jungle. That's the only thing I need to know about jungle. Pathings change and blah, blah, safe stuff change. The only thing that jungle needs to do in competitive, in my opinion, is know what lane to play around. So in scrims and competitive, jungle is like, it's hard to play if you are if you're not experienced in league. But if you're experienced in league, I think jungle is probably the easiest role to roll up to. Like, I think it's a hard role to play. But let's say if you have played 5 years of playing mid or top, I think you could probably roll up to jungle and play jungle. That's
So this is the main thing that I actually disagree with PERKZ on Twitter. Is he always just says that jungle is the most broken role in solo queue. Even in 10.2, when he's literally 5 levels above his jungler, he's trying to say that jungle is the most broken role.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think jungle is just like, I think jungle is still really OP in solo queue. I don't know if it's the most broken. I don't know what's most broken in solo queue. I think on high elo, it probably has to be support. Like, better support wins most of the games on high elo. But I think jungle is still strong in solo queue, just because you can just decide the game by even ganking enemy bad player. You can just take over the game by doing that. So it's like, I think it's a tilting role to play in solo queue, because, or in general, it's a tilting role because, like, even if you say, let's say in our team we have all situations where Janko's points where the jungler is, and then we still like trade and die to the gank, you know. So you just have to kind of learn, I guess, to deal with it, you know, with this kind of things. Even though if you like, you have to just not be egoistic, I guess, when you play jungle, because you can't be like the better jungler in that sense. Like, it's not like how do I say? You're not like, if you do your clear and you know what you want to do in the game, blah blah, and you tell your teammate everything, and then John can still get kills, and he's still the better jungler then, right? So it's just a hard role. I mean, in that sense.
So then, how do you explain the jungle prodigy Buzz Lightyear 99 Tyler 1 being a challenger 80 carry, but hard stuck Diamond 4 with 250 games on his jungle account? How do you explain that?
Account? How do I explain it? Well, not every player is like. I didn't say every player can play jungle.
He said if you understand the game.
I think jungle is. That's actually one thing that I really hate, and I really hope Riot changes. I think you're not allowed to get autofill jungle on your team. I think that should be something that change. Like, if one team gets autofill jungle and the other team is main jungle, the game is 95% lost. But if you have autofill on any other lane, you still have a chance to win the game. Like, if you have autofill mid, he can pick Karma, I don't know, tank mid or something, and just play and just not die. You know, on bot. Even on bot, you can play major, so you can just play, I don't know, Varus, Jhin or something, not int, right? And support, honestly, if you can't play support as autofill, you are just actually inting. I refuse to believe you can't play support as autofill. Like, everyone should be allowed to play support.
I need to push back on this a bit, because here's the problem, right? It all sounds well and good, especially when you've been a fucking mid laner, by the way, being like, I think jungle would be, you just got to know where to go, which lane to play up. My lane, always my lane. Like, I know, like, you're thinking it's easy, but all I'm saying is this. I just want to see you play those 4 LEC games where you start one game, your team fucks up a level 1, the enemy jungler's like got a kill, like, fuck, this game starts. You start another game, you're just behind in it. You start the third game, surely this time, you tell them, you ping like you're saying, he's coming to your lane, they still die to him anyway. It's like, when you've done those 3 or 4 games where you never ever actually got ahead and you never felt like you were in the game, and you were just constantly like some guy who lives in like an apartment who doesn't have quite enough money this month, and then his boss pays his late, and then he's telling the guy, like his landlord, like, oh no, the rent will be here in 3 days. And like, if it's not, then we'll throw your shit out. Then his girlfriend's having an argument with him. Oh, it's not the time, baby. I've got all the work going. That's what playing fucking jungles like, mate. And at the same time, the little kid just screaming in the room, Daddy! Like, all these bills and the stress. Like, that's what playing LEC professional jungles like, mate. We all flame these guys when they look bad because it's funny, but I actually feel mad sorry for any jungler on a bad team. Like, I bet tonight.
No, I agree. I think playing jungle on a bad
team. It's going to be the worst role to play, a jungle on a bad team.
For sure, yeah. It for sure sucks. For sure, yeah.
I can tell you from experience, it's not good to play with losing lanes every game. It doesn't feel like it matters.
I mean, even in solo queue, like when I get autofill jungle and I'm playing my Lee Sin, which is like Giga Pro, of course, and then I get 3 losing lanes, I'm just like, I can't do anything, you know. I'm just farming. Hopefully they int, you know. You just have to hope enemies into that point, and even then, like, it's still probably hard because even if they int, they're still gonna win their lane afterwards. So it's just hard. Yeah, I agree.
Like, the problem is PERKZ now is like one of those like really rich kids from fucking SoCal that are just totally delusional now. He lives in like Beverly Hills or something, Dom. Like, he's like, oh, it'd be easy to have a job in the town, you know, and then dad could drive you back in the Cadillac every night. And everyone's like, what do you... Like,
it would be nice to be
possible now, because if he plays any other role, he's gonna have Wondrous as top laner, fucking like Mickey X as his support. Like, they've got so much luxury in that team. They don't know what it's like anymore to be in a normal League of Legends team with that. This guy's just bad, but I hope next year he's gone. Like, you don't have any of that in your team. You're all living in a dream.
No, I mean, I agree with you. What we have on this team is just something like so unreal that we will probably never ever experience again after we split up. So I cherish it and I'm aware of it, right? So I agree with you, but I still think I could play any role on any team and be like good at it. So
hey, for the record, I agreed. I agreed with this.
Teams in my life, so I played on many teams in my life. I think I'm good at adapting. So
yeah. So I think the first team I ever saw you play on, I actually didn't even know who you were at the time, but I was friends with Jesses, who was your AD carry in G2 in season 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching some of your games there, and I was so surprised because watching your team come into LCS, I think that was before kha'zix went top. He was playing jungle. I just didn't think that your team would pop off. I mean, you went to 5 games with, I think SK, I think it was Sven Skaren's team, right? So you went to 5 games with SK, play against Sven Skaren, barely win the series, and I'm like, okay, so this is going to be a bottom feeder LCS team. You know, up until that point, Ocelot just like he tried to get into LCS play as a player, failed. Like they kept on putting together new rosters that was supposed to have all these like sick people on it. Never worked out. That was the first time they qualified. I'm like, okay, whatever, man. Like Ocelot's been out of the league for a while, for like maybe a year and a half, 2 years at that point. There's no way this team's going to be good. And then you guys just came in and won the first split. So like, how did you make the improvement to go from a challenger team that's barely better than like the 9th place team to being suddenly the best team in LEC by far?
I mean, to be honest, I think, I don't know how else to say it than it was just like luck. Like there is for sure, because let's say we got Trick, who turned out to be the best LEC jungler, at least in the meta, let's say. We don't want to argue anything else, right? And jungle and mid. Jungle was the peak of the jungle. So jungle was very important, and mid lane is obviously always important, right? Mid jungle is always important. And I think that off-season, I got really, really good as well. I think that I was like not that good in that series I played. And even, in Challenger series, like I was good, but I was like, I wouldn't say that I was like insane, you know. I wouldn't say I was gonna go to LCS and just shit on everyone, which ended up like being the case, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there is for sure just luck and just like talent involving in that, like everything. Because it was honestly like kind of from my side at the time, it was kind of troll because I didn't even know the kha'zix was going top. I actually didn't know kha'zix was going top, and I just heard that kha'zix is gonna go top and we resigned kha'zix, blah blah. I'm like, okay, that's how that works out, you know. I didn't know anything, and then we couldn't even we couldn't get someone really good AD, right? So we got Emperor, which was Korean, and at the time was like Korean import meta. Mm-hmm. So you just whoever imports more Koreans was like had a good chance of winning. So we just imported a Korean, and he was like not bad, but he was like not great either, right? So I just think it was like kind of lucky that we just won the finals.
Well, I was just gonna ask real quick, how much did Young Buck contribute to that? Because I remember like hearing different things about him. Some people, like I think you always said that he was beneficial for your team, but I heard from others that he was just like a chef or like more of a manager than a coach at that point. So like, how much was his influence in your team in season 6?
I think he was a very cool guy to have because he was calm, and he was very open-minded because he was first played as a coach actually, and he was doing a lot of work in terms of like not only specifically coaching, but he was also like he had to do manager job basically. He was also cooking for us, and he was like taking care of us because we were just like a couple of teenagers, right? Taking care of us in terms of like, just making sure we are okay, right? And also having 2 Koreans on team is not easy. You have to like integrate them into the team, right?
I know all too well.
So I think like he had a lot of work on his hands. So in terms of like, I don't even know what is supposed to be I don't know, a League of Legends perfect coach, you know. I don't know if that exists, you know. So he was like not super insane macro League of Legends game knowledge coach, right? Mm-hmm. But he was very good for us that split and that year as well. So I think that especially with Mitty coming in, he improved a lot in terms of like game knowledge, right? Because Mitty was very, very smart, and he taught us a lot.
It's like a rare example of a player, right? Where a lot of people won't get this. It's like they don't just know their own role; they also kind of know how like the overall team should play. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like what is each person?
It's quite rare you get people like that, though, right?
Yeah, so that's also like part of like my lucky career is like getting Mitty that early was kind of really good for me because I got to learn a lot. really fast, right? And
then you're like, right, I've learned everything, so you can get the fuck out now. I'm going to get my next teammates in. So I banish you to TSM.
Now we just need mechanics, so let's get Mickey X in here.
Exactly,
We're chilling.
Next teammates are next learning experience, right? It's all a learning experience in life. So, I mean,
I like the way he makes it sound, right? Like he's being really humble, but in doing so, it actually makes it sound even cockier. Like he's just like, yeah, when I first came to LCS, like I didn't even think I would be that good and just be shitting on everyone, which evidently happened, by the way.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, it turns out I'm actually like one of the greatest of all time or something. I just fuck around, you know. And I was just wrecking everyone.
I mean, it is what it is.
I'm gonna lay down in my chair, listen to you a bit.
Ridiculous.
I mean, it is what it is. Like at this point, I was even trying to think who else could be in the argument for greatest European player of all time. I don't know if you've thought about this yourself, but like the other names that come up, it's like Soaz, for example.
Here's the problem, Dom, I can already tell you, is that most of them weren't like the primary carries.
Yeah.
They were players, like for example, Soaz, Yellow Star, like Reckless, obviously. I guess Reckless had a couple of seasons where he was. The problem is, though, mostly these are people who had amazing teammates as well, just winning the best teams, if we're being real, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the split that gave me that made me respect PERKZ the most was the first one, right? Because when you look at that team, it's like a rookie mid laner and two Koreans, which never seemed to work out super well in Europe before. Two Koreans that don't normally work well. You have a role swap top laner, and then you're coming into the league with like a team that should be 8th to 9th place, and then winning the whole thing. I'm like, damn. They're winning for some fucking reason.
People don't know this. That was actually the first team that PERKZ was in, where he's only been in the LCS for one split, and already it was on his Game of Thrones bullshit because simultaneously he took that vacation. Where when he was on vacation, when I go on vacation, I take time off. You go on vacation,
end up with two new teammates.
Yeah, all of a sudden the best bot lane's like, can I please come and join your team? You're like, oh, well, another more coincidence. And at the same time, a lot of people don't know this angle. This is the underrated part. As he got his new bot lane to come and join him after he beat him in a final, he then sent out Agent Hybrid to go and destroy the OG team in the other direction.
True.
And ensure Forgiven couldn't be in an even better team with Soaz and Paravi. So he did both. That's the part people don't give him credit for, is he was masterminded the whole thing.
Honestly, I love you, Tony.
Yeah, that Skype
you're like my biggest fan. Like you just made the craziest theories.
I'll make a better story of your life than it actually was. If there's ever a movie, I'll write the script for it.
Yeah, you should. Honestly, you should actually write the movie script for me because it sounds. I would watch it for sure. I would like pay.
Yeah. You know what the movie would be called?
Eat my popcorn, you know, and
the movie would be called The Perks of Being Lucky.
True.
Okay.
Because in your world, it's just luck, right? Oh, just got lucky. Oh,
it's true, yeah.
It's nice to be lucky. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, just win everything.
I do enjoy being lucky, you know. Like, what can I say? Quite a lot. Actually, I'm sorry about being like I was traveling in the airport, right? And I was going back and forth, Berlin, Croatia, and 3 times in a row, I got stopped on the random scan detector. And it's just a random scan detector. And I told the woman, but I'm already stopped 3 times in a row. Like, what's up with this, you know? And she told me, well, you're just lucky. Maybe you should go and get a lottery ticket.
Yeah,
so
no.
I'm just very lucky.
That's super weird. I've been traveling with Mo a bit, and for some reason, he always gets stopped by the random detection as well. So
not bad.
He must be pretty lucky as well, I guess. Jesus.
He is. Yeah,
he's very lucky,
being going under a different star, right? So.
Yeah.
So I mean, what about this though? In terms of in your career, like you were talking about when Young Buck was in your teams for those first couple of years, which to be fair, like you said, it's the first 2 years he was a coach, right? Do you know other players in other teams? Does it sound like he had a different role when he was in the Fnatic team?
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like so I got to find a lot of this out when Caps joined our team as well. It's like a lot of things we did in G2 in 2017. Turned out Fnatic in 2018. So when Caps joined G2, a lot of the times in the early of 2019, he said like, "Oh yeah, we used to do this because Fnatic was World Finals. They won the split." So he was like trying to say what they did sometimes as well. And I was like, "No man, we used to do this in 2017, you know." So whatever they were doing in 2018, we were already doing like a year before. And so I think that he probably just took a lot of all the good things he could take from G2 to Fnatic, right? And just has a fresh start, right? And I would assume same with Excel now, where he can also just because Fnatic has a team with a lot of like drama, which is quite funny to follow as well. that he can take all the good things and know what are the bad things, for the new start. So I definitely think that as for coaching role, having even for players, like having fresh starts is very good. But I'm just again lucky enough to just have a great team here. So
do you think that was like from Mithy? Do you think that it's like Mithy helped Young Buck learn more about the game, and then Young Buck became like a better coach in general?
I mean, for sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was for sure. Yeah. It wasn't probably like only, it was like mix of all of our players, right? We all had like good things. Every single one of us had like good things that we were doing and stuff. So I think that for sure.
So do you think that in 2018, the reason why Fnatic was better than you guys, assuming that you guys were still like, I mean, obviously there was change of players, you guys left your ball in. Do you think they just had superior players overall? Like they just had better lanes, like, so it didn't even matter if their skill or their team knowledge was like on another level to yours?
I mean, I think it was like mostly just like their team level was like, even if you will watch the games, like their team, after like the first turret fell down, and it didn't even matter if it was ours or theirs. Just as soon as the game went into mid game, like the state, once the first turret falls down, the game goes into a different state. It's not any phase anymore. It's all about whoever moves better, right? And as soon as the game went into mid game, we were just lost. Even if we got enemy bot turret, let's say first, we were just like lost on the map. We didn't know what to do. So the games were like so sad to play. And they're probably like even more sad to watch, because even if you win early game, it doesn't matter, just because the game is just auto lost after 20 minutes, and that's probably how a lot of teams feel now, right? So I think that it's just it was just like not a fair match. No, like from my perspective, like we had like G2, even our staff left, so we didn't have anyone. So it was only me left, and I had a specific way of how I wanted to play the game and how I thought the game was supposed to be played, because I thought that even in 2017 Worlds, we were like, I would say like top 3 team in the world at that time, and we were a very, very good team. And I thought that I know how the game is supposed to be played as a team. And then when you have all these like players from different teams with different, let's say, views of playing the game, which I thought were wrong because of my ego. I thought, I mean, a lot of the times, some of the players, what they were saying also made sense, but I was just ignoring it in a way, because I had this way of how I want to play the game and how I see the game, right? And I wanted everyone to kind of like bend to my views, right? Or because that was working for me in the past, and what I thought whatever is working for me should work for everyone else as well, right? So it was just a lot of learning to do in a very, very short amount of time, whereas Fnatic only changed one player. They stayed together. They already had synergy. They were already a decent team in 2017, I thought. So by just getting like a huge upgrade on support role, like Hylissang was like a giga smurf that year. Like it was just not even fair. Like one team had Hylissang, and the other team didn't have Hylissang, and it was like it was not fair to play. So yeah.
So
I think that.
At what point did you guys actually like get good? Because everyone came in to that Worlds. Like most people didn't even expect you to make Worlds, right? Because in playoffs you went out in quarterfinals, and then you made it back through the gauntlet. And then you ended up having this miraculous run where you beat RNG, which was supposed to be one of the best teams in the world. I mean, that was the year that they won MSI.
They won everything, except Worlds.
Honestly, that's pretty. That's
pretty. Is it just
crazy
lucky?
Again.
Is it just lucky or what?
I mean, I think so. Yeah. I mean, in a way, because we were working so hard to improve on like specific areas and specific scenarios of the game, and we were just like getting. I mean, I know that we had like this breakdown, not breakdown, but just like something just like didn't work the week before quarterfinals of LCS back then. We went like 321 or 322 in scrims. It was like the worst scrim record of my life. Like we were not even.
Oh, that was my average one when I used to play.
We even had like when we were ahead, we couldn't even win anymore because we just had a mental block of winning. Like it was just like impossible to win. And when we lost, it was like so shocking for me, right? Because I thought that maybe there's like some chance that we get lucky on stage, and then we win on stage against Misfits, which were like not that great, but we lost anyways. So losing to Misfits, we just had like this like kind of a talk that let's just take a break, right now, and try to refresh and try to fight again at Gauntlet, right? What can we do? Like, I mean, I was personally very down because of that for like a day. It's usually how it goes to me. Like I'm really, really angry for a day, and then I just relax, reset, and then come back stronger. And then when we came for Gauntlet, we just won most of our scrims. We were not making these like stupid mistakes we were doing beforehand, and we were, honestly, like even when we scrimmed Schalke, I could easily say we were gonna win Gauntlet because we went like 12-0 in scrims against Schalke.
That was like amazing, right?
Yeah, we Nuke amazing upset like that. The roster, right? They went to finals.
Yep.
So we felt like really comfortable. And we were getting like really cocky at that time as well, because we were saying like, if we beat Fnatic right now, we would beat them now. Now we would beat Fnatic.
Yeah.
I think we just got good because we found out what they want to play and how we want to play. Like we didn't, even though this is like, I use this as a meme usually, like we didn't actually have a team identity. Like we didn't actually have like strengths or like knowing what we want to, like what is actually our strength, because we lost so many games prior to playoffs. We didn't know what was actually good, right?
Yeah.
So come Gauntlet, we were like winning games and we knew what we want to play. And we had like our Tamkench, Jinx, Ziggs, Varus, Jhin, right? We had these pocket picks, and we had like top mid. We were abusing OP champs before the others were. Like we were using Akali, Aatrox, Urgot. We were flexing all three of them around. And Jankos was playing whatever was meta at the time. I don't even know, right? He always just plays best meta champs. He was playing Olaf. So we actually found this like, okay, we have mid push, and we have Olaf, and we have bot push champs. And Wunder plays just hard carry scaling champ, right? And that was like kind of our strategy. And we were just very good at it. And then when we tried to play like one tank game, our first tank game at Worlds, also our my first Akali loss ever. We lost against Supermassive playing tanks, and we're like, okay, we're not playing tanks ever again. We're playing carry tops, and we are playing the game our way,
We're
and
fucking playing a LeBlanc in the mid lane versus fucking.
And then after that, we just decided to go for sticking to our style, right? Which turned out to be very good, which I'm very happy with, because in my previous years, like even this is like something that happened in 2017, like we, Misfits ardent jungle and tank support.
Yep.
We actually did this in scrims like weeks before them, and we were doing it, and then we played one game on stage, and then we fucked up our pathing, and the game was just unplayable, and I don't know, it was just hard to play. But we just gave up on it. We didn't want to stick to it because it's Worlds, it's 6 games only. Shit, man, we have to go back to meta, So we never know what could have actually happened if we stuck to it. Maybe we would be smurfing, maybe not. Maybe it was just not good, But we just gave up on it, right? So I'm really happy that next year we didn't actually give up on our stuff and we just kept playing, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
this is actually, by the way. Oh, sorry. Did you have a
I just wanted to say like one thing. I just feel like inherently that wouldn't have been good for your team because your AD was kind of like a role player. When I look at 2018 G2, Hjarnan was just kind of there to be backline, do damage, but he was never like a star AD carry. So if you're gonna I can't imagine G2 in 2018 putting PERKZ on Karma mid and that giving them a better chance to win. Like then you're just relying on Woodid and Hjarnan just smurfing on bot lane. I don't know if that's.
That wasn't the meta.
Anyway, okay.
I mean the year before.
He meant the 2017 meta.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to bring this up though because that's actually something I was thinking about when he was talking, which is one way that PERKZ actually does have basically like a winner's mentality is there's loads of famous sports quotes about luck, right? Where people who are champions, it's not that they don't think luck exists, it's that they know that like you can sort of like increase the amount of luck you have by your mentality. Like if you play as though things are possible that you can't do right now, or you actually think, right, well, even if I lose this one situation where it was just unlucky that I lost, if I keep putting myself in that situation again and again to succeed, eventually it'll happen for me. So the key thing I think is everyone is lucky and unlucky. Probably not to the same degree, it's just the way life is. But the big problem is if you over-focus on when you're unlucky, then you always have an excuse. And you also think, because you think you're unlucky, you then will actually see another opportunity and think, that's not going to work either. And you go into it with the worst mentality. Like a lot of the people who are really great players who've been like the chokers, that's the same thing. Is they'll never say they choked. They always have a reason, this player just seemed like he was off that day, or the scrims were really bad before. It's like I tell them sometimes. Do you think everyone who beats you in these games had like the best day ever? Like,
are you taking shots at Forgiven or what?
Yeah.
Are you taking shots at Forgiven?
One of the people that was in my mind because they always have an excuse. Basically, I always say that. Like it's like that. That's why there's that classic line like excuses are like assholes. Everyone has them and they all stink.
Yeah,
none of them really work.
To do.
Here's an example, right? is when I was talking about all the last few years of PERKZ's career, it looks like he's just the luckiest guy ever, except for the fact that I was obviously being sarcastic. He secretly did do half that shit behind the scenes. Just not as good as my movie version, obviously, but he did do a lot of it. And just don't ever look into it right. There's no paper trail. This guy didn't leave any fingerprints. You'll never get him.
I burned all the
exactly. Yeah. This is like one of those movies, a heist movie. He got away with it though. He's got the millions. It's cool. We don't have to look in any of the deals. But what I'll say is this: there are moments in his career which you easily view and say you're unlucky. Like, think of all the championships he won, and then his bot lane goes to NA. His coach gets signed by the main rival. He gets some players I thought were pretty crap in the bot lane, actually. They actually ended up being better than I expected, but they looked terrible. And when you see that lineup, a lot of players never win again in their career after that. That's it. You're just a good player on like the second or third best team. Yep. Then you look at that Worlds, the one that you're talking about, season 7. That's actually one that I think is so unfair, because even though they got grouped in that one, right? Think about this for a second. They were a number 1 seed. If you are a pool 1 seed, this is the way Worlds works. You get 2 pool 2 teams, right? Now, what would the worst pool 2 teams you can get be? These 2 teams. You get number 3 from Korea.
Best Chinese team and the championship winner.
and the team that was number 2 from China. Like, you actually can't make a worse group of death for a number 1 seed from the West. Like, that's the group where even though you're the number 1 seed, you're actually not supposed to get out of it. And if people remember that one, they won't, sadly, because it's so long ago. They actually, in almost all those group stage games, like, had chances to win those games. It was actually really close against them. And remember the team,
we could have
the Samsung team
and just make it out.
And even one of those games against Samsung, who actually went on to win the tournament, it was so close. Like, people don't know that's the big what if. Like, if that had been an easier group, you'd have been in the playoffs. I actually think you could have done damage that year. You probably had a better team than the next year. Like, that's an example where you could easily say, like, oh, how unlucky. But you overcame it all. Like, now it doesn't even seem like anything. Now it's funny almost, isn't it? No one gives a fuck now.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's true. I mean, you're right.
All right. Anyone else?
No, I mean, I'm good with that. I mean, do you guys want to talk about LEC at all right now?
Yeah, let's do it. Right, here's one thing I want to ask, right? Because I already know the way PERKZ is, right? He's doing this thing, which is genius. I'll give everyone a very quick history lesson, right? Where I first noticed this attitude. There's another thing if you're a champion. Take notes right now, because this is what you need to do. So, you know, if you're in NA, Doublelift's the most storied champion there. He's won the most championships. And his famous thing he always used to do, right? To be fair, when he wasn't a champion, was he used to say everyone's rubbish, didn't he? He'd say everyone's trash, like I'm way better than them all. That's actually not a very good tactic, because think about what people say about PERKZ and Doublelift's championships. They go, who cares? They were in NA. Like, who were they playing? Like, a bunch of players, no care. It actually devalues your championships. One of the things that PERKZ understands is what actually, there was an old school CS player that used to do this. I used to wonder in interviews, because his team was the best in the game. But in interviews, he would always talk up all the other elite teams in his region. Like, he'd go like 3 or 4 teams deep, and he'd be like, you know what? It's really tough to beat them in that semi-final, though. And, you know, I was wondering what was going to happen on map 1 against this team. And I would think, like, that's kind of bullshit, though. Like, you knew you were going to win. But what he understood is, if you make your rivals sound sick and then you beat them all the time, you're even sicker, aren't you? You've just made your value as high as possible. So I can already tell you right now, PERKZ is going to do this thing where he's literally you're going to think he's like the best PR agent that Fnatic ever had. He's going to make Fnatic sound good. All of a sudden it's going to be cool that Rogue's just inting all these games away. And it turns out like 2 of their players don't play half the champions we thought they did. He's going to probably like have to spin it that Origin's still good after that disgrace that we just saw last week. Like, I'm getting ready for it, because even though in theory what he should do is just tell us G2's by far the best, like there's this big gap between everyone else in the league and they're all just competing for second. Let's all now hear a bunch of bullshit reasons as to why they're getting lucky winning all these games as well. Come on, then.
Well, that's a great story again, Torrent. Thank you for the storytelling. And I would like to mention that I do think that G2 is the best. I agree with that. You hit the spot there. But I think that other teams suck besides Fnatic. I still think Fnatic is a good team. And even when we play against them, like it might be that we have like history with them, and that our games get like more like we're kind of playing with our cocks out against them, because we want to like show something, because it's just like I played for 5 years against them. This is my 5th year against them, right? So it's just like long history, and they won championships, we won championship, right? But even like today we screened them and they were like pretty good. We challenged them. They challenged us, I mean, and then it was like it's just fun to play against Fnatic, because they actually are good they are a good team, and everyone else is bad and should improve. That is correct. Yeah.
So who do you think is the next best team after that? Because you have Origin, you have Rogue. Both these teams lost last week. Misfits is randomly tied with them. I personally don't think Misfits is that good, but like, how do you value like Origin, Rogue, all those teams?
Well, I think if I would have to, it's hard to value them honestly. I would say that Rogue could be better than Origin. Just like, I think Origin is good though, but Origin has like some strengths. I think their top laner plays really well.
Yeah, I think Afari is beast.
Yeah, he plays really well. And for Rogue, I would say that all of them play decently well. I think they're just like, they kind of understand what to do, but not always, you know. So I think that it's hard to say honestly. But I think Rogue and Origin are the 3-4, and then after that, I would have said XL, because I think XL actually looks good in their games. Like the way that they play early games, I think XL might honestly be like the best early game, or like, let's see, like I would say top 3 early game teams, because they actually play well. I look at their games and they are playing really well.
How much do you think is that them playing well, and how much of that is their champion pool? Because I feel like a lot of times when you're playing like Pantheon mid a bunch of fucking games, like that's gonna increase your ability to win early game for sure, right? So.
It's true, I agree, but it's like Pantheon is not also like a super easy to execute champ. I mean, in theory it should be, because you are so strong and you can like dive everywhere, but it's also like you actually need to make plays well together. You need to play around vision together. You need to roam together. You need to like execute plays well. So it should be easy to do, but like there's a reason why teams are not opting into Pantheon very often, right? Because it's still a risky champion, and XL is doing it, and they're drawing bans. So I think that also gives them an edge in drafting in some sense, right?
Yep.
And that's why I think that XL and Misfits, honestly, Misfits just surprised me, right? Because I wouldn't say that Misfits is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, everyone said they were going to be 10th place.
Like I thought so too, right? And now they're one of the teams you're preparing the most against, because they're actually playing well. Like Misfits is not playing bad on stage. They're one of the better teams, and I think it's also partially because Fabiven is actually playing really, really well, and everyone is speaking about Nuke, Nemesis, Larsen, Humanoid, these players, but Fabiven is like Sleeper, the best mid. I mean, besides me, right? Let's not like get ahead of ourselves. But Fabiven is Sleeper best mid splits. So I think that's something that we have to look out for, right? Yeah.
Definitely. So I guess another team that we have to ask you about is, so we talked about all these teams that are doing well. What's the problem with Schalke? Like, why are they so bad? Like, I never thought they were going to be good, but coming in, I thought they would be fighting for like the 6th place seed. Like, they'd be fighting for the last playoff spot. And they end up just inting almost every single game. Like, it looks so bad for them. I mean, UNTITled's always been solid. Top lane, Forgiven, everyone told me he's been playing well coming into this. Like, they should have a decent team. I mean, IWDominate, obviously, he had a bad summer split, but in spring, he looked fine last year. What is the issue? Like, why are they so bad?
I mean, I don't know, right? I mean, it's just like last year, as I mentioned, they were getting carried by bot jungle. Like, their bot jungle was the reason why they were winning games, if they were winning them. And now they changed bot and jungle, and I think they just downgraded both. And if you downgrade both lanes, that just makes you a worse team, right? It's not like IWDominate and UNTITLED were hard carrying. And I do think actually UNTITLED is probably the best performer. I mean, for sure the best performer on the team, because he's actually playing well. He's just playing top lane, right? So UNTITLED is for sure playing better than he was last summer. But it's still like not enough if you're just playing top lane, right? So I don't know. They're just not that great, yeah.
That entire team is bad, mate. Like, after watching them play, they're also an example of a team where, like, with the exception of the jungler, I don't think anyone's actually, like, legitimately bad. Some of them are bottom half in the LEC. It's just that as a team, they have no identity whatsoever. Like, they don't fit together as a team. Even the games they've had leads in, they just did nothing and just lost the fucking game, basically. Like, I don't think they have, like, it just seems like it's a failed experiment of putting the players together.
I mean, whenever I
most of them were pretty good in the other teams, you know.
I
think IWDominate is mad overrated, though. Like, I'm just done with him as a player, mate.
Yeah, I was pretty high on him in spring, and then summer he really disappointed me. I always wonder when I see a team like this, how much is affected by like having a negative mentality, because you say like Forgiven is somebody who always makes excuses, right? I feel like them losing some of those early games just made them so much worse as a team, because the games that they lost, at least they were kind of close in certain situations. It looked like they should have won. And then when you start getting on that snowball of losing, like I've been on teams before where it just feels like we lost 4 games where we felt like we were playing at our level. Like, how can we ever win? And then negative mentality might affect you to the point where you like can't even win anymore because you're just so down on yourselves. Or you just lose faith in your teammates. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it's true.
I don't know. I've just been. I just don't know if a team like that can recover. I guess is where I'm at. I feel like a team like this is just such like a volatile team already, just based on the players that are on it, that if it ends up going bad, like how do they turn it around? So I don't know. I mean, I guess Schalke is just fucking doomed. Is what I'm hearing.
I think they need a way better coach as well. Like that's a team where you've got like a million fucking questions to answer if you want it to be good. So I don't know if they have the right coaching staff for that.
Yeah,
that guy, it seems to me, just like he's just like a by the numbers coach. Like he does like the things that sort of make sense for an okay team. But it's like this is a team where like this is where you need Young Buck. You need him in a team like this. Like he might be able to do a miracle with this team. Who knows? But I doubt they would be good still. Like after just seeing the players play, they probably shouldn't be.
They have Dylan Falco, right? Like Dylan's the coach. The thing about Dylan Falco is like it's always been so hard for me to put weight on how good he was, because the first team I ever saw him coach, like obviously he was a TSM analyst for a while. The first team I ever saw him really coach was that Immortals team in 2016, maybe 2016.
Yes, 2016, yeah.
Yeah, so 2016 Immortals, which had Hooney and Rainover on it right after they shit on EU. So when they had those impressive splits, it always made me feel like he wasn't that good of a coach, because you have such a dominant team. They're winning top and jungle every single game, and they couldn't get a championship. They couldn't even make it to Worlds. So when he joined Fnatic in I think maybe 2017, maybe 2018, whenever he joined Fnatic after that, it just seemed very very weird to me. It's like, how does he have so much like power? How is he getting such high profile jobs when I look at the Immortals team and I'm like, damn, you had Poe Belter, who ended up winning 2 championships the next year. You have Hooney Rainover. Like, if you're not getting that team to win, or I guess 2 years from then, Poe Belter ended up winning. But if you're not getting that team to win, like, why do other teams think you're such a great coach? So, I mean, I guess that you just have to ask players to play for him. And
problem is, it's like you say, like in the coaching world, I actually think coaching generally, just because people think that they were doing loads of stuff years and years ago, it's only like in the last few years coaches do anything close to the things fans always thought they did anyway. Like, I think most of them were really just analysts who had the title coach. Yep. So as far as I can tell, he seems like he'd be a good analyst. But in my opinion, like the real coaches, this is why I actually think someone like Youngbuck was ahead of the game, is most of his strengths seem to be outside of the analytical side of it. It's how to actually like deal with personalities, how to like figure out a communication system between people, how to take 2 people who can't work together and have them work on one minor thing and know how to keep them set. Like lots of like, it's a lot of like people skills, you know? Yeah. So a lot of the people I've seen who were LCS coaches, a lot of them actually, if they had the right person with them, could probably win championships. But if they're just on their own as the coach, like they just lack some of the certain skills I think you need in these teams. So if you have the right team for that person, it's the same in sports. Yeah, it'd be awesome. But if they have any problems, some of them can't deal with problems, I don't think. I think there's a lot of coaches that describes.
So I guess I have 2 questions coming from that. So the first one would be to PERKZ is, when you're at such a high level, right? You made the World Finals, won MSI, like one of the most dominant teams in the world. How much do you feel like a coach could really teach you? Or is it more just like the coach is trying to get the team to work together?
It's just coach trying to get a team to, I mean, so it depends. I think what makes it, like, first of all, let's be clear. I don't think in League of Legends, or maybe even in like traditional sports, I'm not sure, coaches should not have more game knowledge than a player. Just to be strict with that. I don't think that's how it works. I think in football, coaches are retired players and players who have had experience playing for a long time, and then it actually makes sense why you are a coach. But in League of Legends, it's such a like young industry that's not possible, right? And I think that you don't actually have to be a player to understand league or to understand football, right? But I do think that it helps you understanding players' mentality and how do they behave in certain situations and how do they think about this or that. And it just helps you, let's say, connect, empathize with player, right? Mm-hmm. And I think what coach should do is have a structure, team structure. So everyone knows what they like, how it's going to be, practice, review, schedule, etc. I think getting team on the same page or whatever you mentioned, like that, making sure the team functions well together is important. So like making sure that there is nothing held inside, but the things are like let out, you know, and you speak about problems, etc. I think that's their jobs of coach, you know, not teaching players how to play the game. I think reminding players of basics and like just like reminding players of what they already know is important, because League is a game of, like, honestly, it's revolved around basics, right? It's like the same game for many years already. and something's changed because game is very situation reliant, but the basics are always there, right? So that's why I think all these things I mentioned, I think actually grabs as well. And as much as we need him and like shit on him a lot, I think he's actually being a pretty good coach for us, right? So I think that's there's like not really much I would want to ask more from my coach, So that's why I think what coach does is good.
Let me push back on that a second.
Let me get my second question in. Let me get my second question in, because this is actually, I think, interesting because you guys probably have polar opposite views of this one person. So the second part of that question is, what is your interpretation of Wheldon as a coach? Because obviously he coached you for, I know it was like kind of remote. It was like a little weird with how he coached you, but he was considered the head coach of G2 for two splits.
He was not a head coach of G2.
What was his title?
He was our sports psychologist, and he was there for
at least he considers.
He was there like for some time, right? He was not there. He wasn't living with us, and he was just there coming off and go. So he was more of a guy who wasn't living with us. And was just coming there and giving us presentations, which I thought was useful for us. I don't think Wheldon is a head coach material. I mean, I'm sorry if he hears this, I don't think that he's a head coach material. And I think his job is better as someone who comes there and is an assistant coach and gives like
the specialty, sports psychology stuff. Exactly, of course.
From what I've heard from people, is he's really good in boot camps. Like he's really good in like 2-week stretches. Like you want him there for a little bit and then he goes.
I think that's good. Yeah, I think that could be helpful. Yeah,
because I know Thorin's always been pretty critical of Wheldon as a coach, even though in 2016 he had.
I mean, justifiably so.
Yeah. So it seems you guys are closer than I thought. I had the assumption that you would have like a very high opinion of him because I mean at that time everyone was super hyped on him, right? He came to TSM, they won. He won one split with CLG, one split with TSM, and then he ended up winning 2 splits with G2 with whatever capacity he was in. So but you can go ahead with what you were going to ask, Thorin.
Yeah, the thing is, on that topic, though, I would just say, like, I actually think it feels like almost everyone's come closer to my side than where they used to be. Because the real problem is this. People used to just ask PERKZ, like, so did having Wheldon help? And then what they didn't say is what context does he do? What role does he do? So in his role, bear in mind, we had barely anyone who did any sports psychology training. Almost no one even knew this field. Like, I would say, like, at least giving it a go with almost anyone's going to help. Then, over time, I'm sure he also worked with loads of teams. He probably tuned his method a little bit more. My problem is just I don't know whether he's like actually like I don't think he could be a head coach. Like I'm sure he's learned some other things over the years. He seemed all right in CLG, but if you in terms of like the idea he could be the best head coach, like as you were saying, if he's saying like I was a head coach and I coached like TSM to the championship, G2, it's like you didn't. You were the sports psychology guy while they then won the championship. So if you want to be the head coach, it's a different role. So what I would just say is this: when PERKZ was saying that he doesn't think any like head coach basically can have more game knowledge than the player, like I feel as though like I know what he means, but I think that communicates like not very well to a fan, because it makes it sound like the head coach should only do those things like, run the fucking practice, like have an overall concept for the team, like make sure people work together, communicate. But I actually do think that you can obviously see a distinction where there are coaches.
I mean, I think coach should like still be able to lead discussions and lead like reviews, right? Sure. But I don't think that he should be. I don't think that in any way like a coach could be more like knowledgeable than a player who's like, let's say, comparing myself, I don't think there's a coach that knows more than me, in the whole even.
Yeah, this is what I want to push back against. Yeah. So here's the problem.
Maybe sure coaches who know more than like rookies, or the players that just.
No. And this is my point. Yeah, at playing mid lane, like a specific matchup, I've no doubt no coach could know more than you. But like the part that doesn't make sense on that is there are definitely coaches who are just really smart about like the macro parts of the game, for example. They could stop any VOD and tell you like, what should we do here? Like what would happen next in this scenario? A lot of players are fucking garbage at that, PERKZ. I've talked to loads of pro players over the years. Like some of them, I'm actually shocked by how poor some of their macro knowledge is. Like it makes you realize this guy relies on this teammate, or he just relies on once he gets to this point in the game, he knows what to do, but he doesn't know if he gets behind in this lane or something.
Sure,
but this way, I mean, obviously, Mithy's a great example. I'm sure if you became a coach tomorrow, when I look at some of the things G2 does in like the mid game, when you're having to make responses, someone in this team has a really sharp mind for what to do next, or what the tempo of the game will be if you make a certain action that a lot of pros wouldn't know. So, like, you can see what I mean. Like, there are certain types of coaches who can do the strategical angle, right? It's more like they can see the bigger view than the player.
So, I mean, one thing that I think PERKZ was going to talk about here that I always find interesting about G2 is, well, I think what he just said was that it was all of them, but how exactly did you guys become so good at being able to determine what's going to happen in the game minutes before it actually happens? Because I feel like you're one of the teams that first started like analyzing when you're going to trade an objective and completely like sacking that side of the map and preparing to like dive the opposite side of the map when you're behind. So like, how did that come to be? Like, how did your team develop like such a good sense of when you can do something, when you can't, like which things you should contest,
how do you read the
etc.
game, basically? Yeah, how the fuck does your team do it?
I think it just comes from experience. Like, there's no other explanation. There's like no luck in this, or no, like you don't actually learn this. You can learn this. Like, it's different. Also for me, like in the past, like even in season 7 and stuff, when I was in the game, I would not be able to do all the best decisions. I would not be able to read the map. When I'm out of the game, I was like, when I was reviewing the game, I was like, oh wow, this is so obvious to me in hindsight, because now I can see the map clearly and I don't have to focus on laning phase and communication and blah, 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 this, blah, blah. I don't have to focus on 10 other things. I can see the map and I can see, oh, this is easy to me to see what we could do and where everyone should be, right? But the more you play and the more you do and the more you been through high stakes matches, blah, blah, the better you get, right? So I think it just comes from, I mean, last year, like I have played for 3 years, right? And I've been through to a lot of stages. I've been to MSI, I've been to Worlds, I've been to this and that. I went to foreign Worlds. Then Caps comes from Fnatic. They won 2 splits right now. In the most recent times, They went to World Finals. Like, he obviously knows a lot, right? So we have 2 of us who know a lot. Me and Wunder and Jankus went to top 4 Worlds. So for sure, 3 of us as a trio also improved a lot throughout the whole year, because I also learned with them and they also learned with me new stuff. So we just learned together. And then Mickey joined, he had successes with Misfits, like up and down. It was a roller coaster ride. It's not like Misfits was like a super trash team either. They were a fine team. They went to Worlds, they had some experiences. Obviously, I think Mickey wasn't on the same page with, let's say, what Caps was always saying or someone else was saying, but he also knew a lot, and he was super good at engaging since day one. He's just like such a like big walls player, he always engages, and whatever we would say, he would always engage and he would play it perfectly. And I think that we've all improved together a lot also over the course of last year, and it just comes from experience and playing a lot of games together that we all know, like everyone makes suggestions, everyone makes calls, everyone makes decisions, and a lot of the times it just comes out to who is the most fit in the game and who is leading the game, right? And it can be anyone, but that's just the beauty of our team, right? It's not like there is one person behind all the plays, and it's a lot about suggestions and all the 5 of us thinking of what we want to do next, right? So it's pretty interesting.
I think there's even an angle there that's interesting, though, which is what you've just described there is actually why every super team that people tried to build in the past usually didn't work. Is because normally when you build a super team, and basically the reason it's a super team, it's, players who are in their old team were the best player, or they were like the focal point of the team. The fact that they then go into a team where it isn't like obvious what should happen, like they shouldn't be getting the pick every game, they shouldn't be getting all the resources every game, every gank every game. Like, and now in theory you could do anything. The fact that you could do anything actually is like cripples some people. They don't know what to do in that scenario. It sounds like in your team you have a really good mentality for the idea of like whoever's leading in the game, play around them. In which case, think about it, you can win a game in a million variations that another team can't. Like, I mean, I think like that team last year, that Schalke team that had upset last year, they had like one way to win the game. Yeah, they couldn't do a lot of options.
It was on the way. I mean, that's for sure like our biggest strength was last year and is now, and it will probably always be, is that every player is just capable of carrying. And like, for example, last year, that's why MSI was like so fucking free. And what kind of is insane is the fact that we, like, let's say, usually when you prepare for a team, a lot of teams are like, okay, we play against RNG. Okay, let's play away from them. Let's match away from them. I'm just giving an example. We didn't actually play against them in the stage, right? Mm-hmm. We play away from them. We try to win topside, and both try not to lose. But how we approached the whole year was, okay, we are playing against SKT. Okay, we have to play mid jungle heavy. We have to win the mid jungle. We have to take over mid jungle. Okay, we play against Team Liquid in the final. Okay, we just have to like shit on their bottom. Okay, easy job done, right? So we just have to. The whole split, the whole time we were just matching opponents.
So you attack what they are good their strength.
Like what we attacked the whole year we were attacking their strength, and we just kept attacking there. That's why every team we played against. that every team, like against Damwon, we won through top set. Against SKT, I would say we didn't attack anywhere because we were getting really shit on every early game, but we won by being a better team and by being better on the same page. And then against FPX, well, they were better, like I want to say, they were better than us. So I think that's basically why we are as good as we are, is that we actually don't give a fuck who we play against, and whoever is your strong side, he's gonna be our weak side, like what can I tell you? Basically, that's basically our plan, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's really interesting. When I hear you talk about your team, I feel like one of the things that's so overlooked is the mutual respect that it seems like all your teammates have. Like, sure, you can have a bunch of people that are capable of carrying. Like, I remember when I was playing with Team Liquid in Season 5, it felt like every one of my teammates was really good. Like, they could all take over the game. Like, Phoenix could take over the game, Quas could take over the game, Piglet could take over the game, but it never felt like we had enough respect for each other to allow that to happen. Like, there were certain people that wanted to be played around, and there was certain people that didn't want to be played around. So even if even if it seemed better to play around one of the people on our team in the game itself, there would always be people that would want the spotlight from themselves. But from what it seems like for G2, it's like the opposite of that. Like, no matter what, you guys are just trying to play the game the best, and everyone on your team just thinks that you're all just really fucking good. So I don't know. I guess it's the most impressive thing I heard from that.
I also think that angle is just a very interesting way to play the game, because that is obviously the exact opposite of what every single team would expect. Because normally the way that people try to approach an opponent is you look for a weakness and you attack the weakness. It's the most basic way to play any game, basically. But that's also because most teams would not be capable of matching whatever their strength is and beating them at that. So I actually think if you could do it, it must be the most demoralizing way to beat the opponent. Because he thinks he thinks I'm getting what they're going to attack my strength. Like as you said, I mean the
what is our strength? Like there's a lot of questions like what is G2 strength, what is G2 weakness? Like what is G2 strength, what is G2 weakness? And people have been trying to make me out to be this G2 weakness, in last spring split, which was quite cringe, honestly, if I have to be really honest. But it's just storylines and narratives. We don't actually have strength. I mean weaknesses, no strengths in that case. We are just a strong team all around.
Because, like, the thing is, though, you've got to give us more insight into the Damwon case, though, because if people don't know, like, there was some story from that Worlds that you'd, like, just got wrecked, like, almost every single scrim you ever played that Damwon team, right? So then why would you then think you could win through top when obviously their best player was the top player, right? So that's a pretty crazy story, isn't it?
We just thought they're like, I was paraphrasing it because against Damwon, our top was probably that we have advantage on both sides because we play. But that was that's a different topic because that was our whole Worlds playbook. We had a different approach, right? We were not actually like as versatile as we were before, I would say. But against Damwon, first scrim we went like not 0-5 or 0-6. We actually went 0-7. Like we remade 2 games and we played like really fast games. And we got shit on every single game. I mean, maybe it was 0-6 only, okay? But basically 0-6. Next time we stream, we went 1-5. And then for the next stream block, we had I made like a small like presentation, a workshop on the whiteboard for my team. And then we took 2 games of them, and we went 2-3. So that was like the best scrim that we had against them. Mm-hmm. And then when we played them on stage, I mean, I looked at the games on stage, and their players. Their solo laners, let's say specific, are not doing the stuff they're doing in streams.
No. They looked way more scared when they played that.
They're just playing like they're just playing like little babies, They're not really doing anything. They're just playing properly by the book, right? And then when I saw them play like that, I thought, okay, there is just no way we lose to this team. That it shouldn't be possible. We are just a better team than them. Why would we lose to them on stage? So it turns out that their bot lane was actually the best performers. Like Nuclear was the best performer in that series, and that was where we thought that we were gonna have like the better advantage, right? So yeah.
By the way, I want to ask you this. Right? I once mentioned this on Listen Local just as like a funny story. I think it was the episode where you came on, where before that Season 8 Worlds, when you beat RNG, because it was so amazing the way you guys won that series, and you like hard carried that 5th game on LeBlanc. It looked so sick.
It's the best game I've ever seen him play.
This was when everyone was first getting really hyped about the West, because obviously Fnatic had like a bracket where they were going to go to the finals. Like your team was looking like, well, if IG lost to Fnatic in the group session, maybe G2 can beat them, and we had the potential for like like all Europe final. Like I actually started, you know what? One of the rare times ever I've sort of like gotten into the spirit of like the hype. Like I started believing it. And so I actually sent PERKZ this like epic fucking DM.
I remember.
Here's the thing. It was actually sick, by the way, because it was almost like the quality I would write in like an article or something.
It was almost like a fiction, yeah.
Oh, it was like something out of a movie, you know, where the coach comes in and gives him that last speech or whatever. And I was telling him, like, you know, just like don't be like a bit sort of like scared of someone's name just because their name's Rookie. Like in the game, you can still make them bleed and stuff. Like it was like I was going fucking ham on this.
Oh, it's a very good joke.
I put some shit at the end, like you know, or like you know, you'll make Europe proud, like with the way you play, some bullshit like that, right? But the problem was, I actually was really into it. I really thought, like, if he wins this is like the most legendary way I could set it up for, because it'll make it seem so sick. And then obviously he literally replied something like, "Okay, I got this." Like, it was actually like an 80s movie or something, wasn't it? And then the sad thing is, I remember waking up and watching
0-3.
And after like game 2 or something, I was like, yeah, that's the end of that. I'm over. And then we never ever spoke about it though. I never messaged him about it again after that. Like, I was like, right, well, you know what? Hands off on this one. That was a bit cringe though. Did you actually believe when I said you? Did he get into it? Did it hype you?
Did you actually read it? Did you read the whole thing?
He did. He read the whole. He replied to it.
I mean, I didn't like. It wasn't like a specific like hype. It was a nice message. I respected it. I thought it was nice of you to write it. And I mean, I thought that we could win the Worlds. I mean, why else would I play, right? I mean,
at that point in time, you have to believe it. Right?
At that point in time, we beat RNG, who like it's not only like it was actually considered like a heavily Worlds favorite because they were like shitting on people in groups. They lost one game on last day, right? But they were like really dominant in their games, and they had like it was Uzi's year, right? So, but unfortunately, it was just a mid top meta, right? And I still think to this day today they were better than us, but we got really fucking cheesed. I actually think this series should have been much closer than it looked like. Even game 3 when we had a different draft, we were actually putting a step. We were stepping on them a bit in the early game. The only problem was that like when the mental block hit, like that was when it was our weakness being 0-2 down at that time. We didn't really know like how to come back, and we wanted to like win the game from one play rather than like playing just slow, and we could just honestly win the game. But the first 2 games we had the Aatrox against Jace, and both games were just like unplayable for us. We never played this matchup before either, and they basically just snowballed the game of their strong pick, and that's alright. We respect that, you know. We do this ourselves as well. So that's something we learned from IG actually. In that way, you know, I had these cheese picks for best of 5 that teams can't prepare for.
Yeah, like Pyke mid.
Yeah, like Pyke top mid. Yeah, maybe top better than mid.
Yeah.
but yeah, basically that. Yeah, I think that's just unfortunate. Yeah.
You know, that's another thing actually about your team that I think is so mad as well. It's like, obviously, because you've had so much success now in the last year, and it's looking brilliant so far, everyone is going to get all the credit because they're going to win all the championships and get to be called the greatest players ever from Europe, etc. But I actually think people have to sacrifice even to be in G2. Like, to me, one of the players who I actually think sacrifices the most is Wonder. Like, when I saw his career before, where he was in the Splice team, when he was like playing all the bruisers, then when he was in the first team with you, where like you said, it was basically mid and top with the best roles and you had to win through those. Like, then he was like a hard carry player. He was like a fucking beast top laner. Like, the last few years, the amount of times he takes the pick that is like the sacrifice pick first is ridiculous. Sure. This guy could just be like a star top laner and just be played through all day long and be considered like the best top laner. Yeah,
I agree with you. You know, I love Martin. You know, he doesn't have ego. You know, he doesn't like care about being this or that, you know, but it's also like it's kind of a luxury for him as well, you know. How many like it's both ways, you know. He's sure when he gets Aatrox or when he gets any carry champ, he smurfs really hard, but he can also just pick Soraka and just chill, you know. Like a lot of teams can't play Soraka because their other players can't play with Soraka and be successful. So it's just a double-edged sword. It's same like as you said, I make my teammates my teammates make me look really good because they're playing well, and everyone who joins G2, it looks good for me, you know, but it also looks good for them, right? It's a both-way street. Like it just looks good it's just good for everyone, you know. If a team is doing well, it's not a good specific person, it's good for literally everyone, you know. Like Wunder won a couple of splits, won MSI, is considered the best player at some point, you know. Miki, best support in the world, you know. Janko's best jungler in the West. I don't know, Caps won another MVP. Like everyone is winning, you know, because we are all together in it. So everyone is just basically winning. There's like no losers, you know. So that's was a nice thing about this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Soraka top angle. I mean, you can't have ego if you're playing Soraka top. I mean, the problem the problem that we have in NA is like it just doesn't look the same. Like when I watch Wonder play Soraka top in your games, it feels like he's always okay being down like 10 CS, but he's undivable and he always has his ult up. Like he never has to burn his ult for himself, almost never. But in NA, for some reason, we play these same matchups, set into Soraka, Aatrox into Soraka, whatever, and the Soraka is just getting hard pressured, like down 50 CS, blowing ult 2 times in lane phase just for himself. Like I don't know how he gets away with the pick, and he just never ends up being behind.
I mean, to be honest, Wunder is just very talented. Like he can honestly play any champ top and make it work. He's just a very good top player.
Except for kha'zix.
So he can, yeah, except for kha'zix. Yeah, that one I still can't believe I got into by kha'zix. But yeah.
I guess one thing I was gonna ask is like how much NA did you actually watch? Like, have you watched any of the NA? Did you watch the TL versus Golden Guardians game? Did you get to see that Senna gameplay? Like,
we watch sometimes NA to how is it called?
Like for comedy, like comedy.
Yeah. We watch it like
for fun.
Yeah,
for fun region.
No, I watch it for comedic content on my stream. It's really good.
I like Sven, so I follow Sven. Okay. So I want to see, and I'm really happy that his team is doing really well. And Cloud9,
he's smart for him at the moment.
Cloud9 looks like an actual team, like compared to any other NA team. Cloud9 is an actual team, and they are actually good. I think they're actually a good team. So I'm very happy for that. And other than that, I just like we were like recently we've been watching. Just like some games actually, and we were like laughing a lot.
Yep.
We've even been watching like some POVs, and it's honestly like it's just good content, you know?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's literally just revived my stream.
But even like honestly, like even like NA casters like are big. I think of them as a big joke. Like the way they speak, I think it's just very. It's just like the whole region seems like they're making fun of the region as well. You know, like the way they talk on cast and stuff. It seems like it's just like. They're just like, I mean, they have to, I guess. I mean,
yeah,
like, they probably
you have two options.
It, you know?
You have two options. It's either comedy or it's depressing. Like one of the two.
Yeah.
So.
I guess, yeah. So it's just like, I mean, it's a very hard thing to deal with, honestly, because it's not like all the players actually want to be like not great, you know, and they probably want to like also improve and reach more, especially the top teams. I'm sure they really actually want to be good internationally, right? But it's honestly, it's just really sad to watch. I think. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know why they are just this bad. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm sounding really toxic, right? But NA actually like looked decent in season 6 and stuff. I mean, when the first imports came, or like a lot of them, like it looked like a good region, right? And it didn't look that bad. But right now, it feels like every year it just gets like worse and worse, and it's just like becoming to the point where. I don't know. It's not even watchable. Like having, yeah.
So I guess you said you watch C9's games. So when you see C9 play, I mean, obviously they're just the best team in our region by far. How do you think that they would do in LEC? Like, do you think that they would be potentially like top 3 behind you and Fnatic? Do you think that they'd be worse than Rogue, Origin? Like, where do you see them placing?
I think they will be for sure top 5. I think top 3 is debatable. I think they will for sure be worse than G2 and Fnatic. And then they would be contesting with Origin Rogue. I think that's what I think.
I think that's pretty fair. Yeah. It's not as bad as people think. Hey, a lot of people are like first place NA. They'd be with Schalke 0-6 in EU. So, you know, it's better than that at least.
No,
I always
everything
thought
C9 does make sense. I mean, sorry to cut, just like what they do. Like I want to just compliment them because they're like playing our objectives well, and the fights they take, they know they're going to win them in advance, so they always win them. It doesn't actually look like. I didn't watch all the games. I watched like I think 4 maybe, and in those games they looked very good. I think there's probably some things they also do mistakes, you know, but they're just looking very, very solid. Yeah, just to mention.
The thing I don't understand, like, it's always been a mystery because it's not like no one's ever asked these questions. Like, if you ask any European person who's gone and coached in NA or any of the, like, obviously they had people like Mithy, Yellowstar go to their region. But for some reason, it's like somehow once you arrive on American soil, you just become an LCS player and everyone just meets in the mid lane, has a 5v5 fight or just like point. Like I had a bit on Someone in Insight where I was just setting Monty off because I knew one thing that would trigger the fuck out of him was that game where I'm trying to think who it was playing. It was like Team Liquid against, I can't remember who they were playing against, but it was this one where they had like super minions, and and this team was still like baiting the Baron, even though they had all the super minions. It's like, what are you going to get from the Baron? Like, you've already got the super minions. Like, you go and break the base open. Like, it doesn't even make sense. So, like, one thing I always think's weird is why the region never levels up, like, sort of its game understanding. It's like everyone agrees to come down to the same level and then just play at the lowest level possible. It's almost like the coaches and even the players must condescend to themselves and think, oh, we just can't do these things, so don't bother. Like, whenever you ask any NA coach, like, why does your team never side lane? They're like, well, it's a lot easier to execute a 5v5. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're not working with, like, 8-year-old kids, you know. You're working with, like, actual adults. Like, some of these players, some of the European players have played in teams that did all that stuff in Europe. Like, I feel as though the level should be higher. They should be able to level up mentally, you know.
I mean, one thing I'll say, one thing I'll say from playing in the region is it feels like at some point a lot of people stop playing to be like the best team possible or be the best like player possible. They mainly play for themselves to try to prove that they're not the problem on the team. So like it feels like it almost becomes selfish at a point where it's like I'm trying to prove that I am worth the money that I'm getting paid, and I don't really care about how like the team looks. Like I just don't want to sacrifice. Like, and honestly, I feel like.
That makes sense. I want to say I think that makes sense. What you're saying, I kind of thought about it too. That you go to like in NA, a lot of players just play to like not get fired and not lose a job because the job is like get shit ton of money, play video games, playing competitively 2 times a week, no stress, you know, for people who don't care, right? Yep. So I just feel like that's how it is, and just play best for myself and have a good life. And honestly, in a way, like I respect that as well. Like I mean,
you respect that?
You do that. You do your thing. You know. I mean,
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Here's the thing, right? I get it. PERKZ.
I could never do. I could
listen,
never do it. You know. So
if someone comes from fucking, I mean, your country's an obvious example. If someone comes from Croatia and they could get a job being like an LEC or an LCS player, and all they want, right, is like you say, they just want like a cool life. You know, they're gonna do their job. Like they'll turn up to practice, they'll play a little bit, they play the game, and then they go, you know what? I'm not the worst player. I'm not the best player. I try. Like, I know what you mean. I'm not hating on them. They can live their life. I just can't fuck with that as a mentality. Like anything I do, mate, no matter what people think, obviously I mean when I do my shows and stuff. Whatever I do, I want to be the absolute best I can be in it. It's not like I don't want to just be the best. Like, if I like the joke would be when everyone used to hate on Travis when me and Travis were the only interviewers. Well, if I only used the logic, like, as long as I'm slightly better than Travis, that's all that matters. Well, I'd be a fucking terrible interviewer, wouldn't I? Like, I have to actually challenge myself to be better. I have to figure out a reason why I would want to do something. And usually that is like, how do you improve? How do you get to another level? How do you accomplish something you've never done before? So I guess I just can't fuck with the mentality, because I always thought that angle that like TSM used to use, where every year, as soon as it went badly, Reginald would just like basically come in, like cock the fucking coach, take him out. Oh, yeah. Coaching himself just so he could win the split. And I used to think that is the most that's like the most short-minded way of thinking ever, because if you do that, you'll never have the team that could win a world. Because all you're doing is that you only care about winning NA, basically. Like you sacrificed everything for that. Whereas what you should have done was, if the staff you had in place lost, you give them a full chance. You give them the chance to prove what they can do. And then if it's the wrong one, you get a new person in. Like, you got to trust the system, basically, in my opinion, if you want to get better.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's like a commitment.
I mean, it just comes down to like the fear of loss. I think is so great here, because the other steps just feel worse. Like, I don't know how it is in Europe. I know obviously you never want to not be an LEC and then play a regional league, but it seems like Academy here is just some next level like shit, where if you play Academy here, you just think it's super doomed.
The national scene is 10 times better than Academy. Like, I actually feel bad for NA teams in that regard, because like the national leagues over here, not only are they mad competitive, just look at the talent they're producing. It's actually amazing. And people play because they now understand what basically nobody in Academy can ever think, which is, even if you pop off in Academy, you're not getting signed unless it's to the worst LCS team and because they haven't got any money, basically. Like in LEC, if you play in the national leagues and you pop off, you'll probably be in LEC next year. In fact, if you're lucky, you might even exactly. You might be like look at the fucking the Misfits and the Mad Lions teams. Like, that's nearly all rookies. Like, those guys are actually near the top of LEC now. So I can imagine how incredibly motivating it must be to be in those national league teams that have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, kha'zix is a player that's really impressed me so far. Besides for when he pulled the Larson and almost ran it down into the fountain and lost the game alone, but You know, I think
he's playing very well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's an extremely impressive player.
He could definitely be one of my future poachees. Is that a good word?
Okay. I mean, if Caps doesn't work out, yeah, sure. But when you see
maybe I retire, maybe I go coach. You know, I never know. Maybe
that's when
maybe I go jungle, maybe I go top. Like
that's when obviously he switches jungle. I actually managed Caps comes back to mid, and then kha'zix can be ADC.
I might go top. You know, this week I actually managed to auto space Safari in scrims in melee matchups.
Nice.
And I also actually like I play top some games, you know, because you're supping, you know. So I also proxied Beepo. Like I mean, I don't know. I'm just like I'm doing all these things that
By the way,
I think top players can do.
There's also how next level PERKZ is, right? You know that premise, like I think it was 3 years ago, where Reginald said that he was going to have like 5 proper subs for every position, so that you would have to compete for your spot, right? The logic was to keep people hungry. Yeah. PERKZ's whole thing is like, I'll just take your role next year if you're not the best. So it's like now they all have to stay hungry because he can. Not only can he take their role, but he's going to recruit the best player to play his old role. So
it's true. Like
everyone's on the hot seat.
Wunder is really shaking right now. I'm sure. Like we had better games against OG when I was playing top, so like I'm pretty sure that he's like shaking for his spot right now.
Yeah, but he is at least he has the self-respect to know that he can still play for the team. See, in NA, if that was the case, he would just be asking for counter pick every single game. Give them Aatrox, I'll play Camille into it, some shit like that. Instead, he's playing Soraka still because he at least has like enough self-esteem to believe that they can still win. So it's worth something. But I mean, yeah, in NA, man, like none of the academy players even graduate to LCS. Like Johnson, for example, who I think is the best rookie that we have. I mean, out of like all the new players, even I would say he's the best one. He didn't even play Academy. He played 4 games of Academy towards the end of the season. He just went straight from solo queue, got a bunch of accounts in the top 10, straight to LCS. I mean, it's almost worthless to play Academy here, whereas in regional leagues, like people seriously consider using those players in top LEC teams. So it's just just a different mindset, I guess. I mean,
if you want to see how pointless the academy system is, even take that guy who you were bringing up weeks ago, and you've been right about him in Golden Guardians, the jungler kha'zix who comes from Turkey. Right, all that guy did is play in the Turkish league, and he looks like ready for the fucking pro scene already.
He looks really good.
He looks better than the academy players do. Like he already played in some shithole reason that no one cares about.
He's for sure one of the best junglers in NA. Like
he looks legit as fuck now.
Yeah,
you're right on that one, Dom.
He's second best.
Like him and Blabber, like just look the best.
Those are the 2 best for sure.
Yeah.
100% agree. I mean, I heard that he had a decent amount of LEC offers. I mean, the one that everyone knows about is supposedly that's who Schalke wanted. And Golden Guardians, I guess they just have a bigger pocketbook than they've got the bigger checkbook than Schalke. I mean, Schalke ended up with Gilius instead. So,
I mean, I can definitely confirm that there are absolutely no clauses on Schalke 04. Like they couldn't fucking win a game to save their life, mate. Like, that's unbelievable, that team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just surprised Gilius made it back to LEC, and then he lasted 2 whole weeks. You know, I thought it would be.
You have to understand, Gilius is like, there's that famous saying about zombies that you can't just shoot them. You have to hit them through the head and then like salt the grave or something to stop them rising up again. Because I have to say, fair play to Kickers and Gilius. Like, it doesn't matter what happens in their careers, they always come back. Like, they have persistence. They are like zombies. They just keep going. I can see it. Right, let him in for 1 week, and after that, they get kicked out again. But here's the thing: everyone else, loses faith, retires. They just keep going.
Yeah,
they keep going.
I mean, I respect the dedication, man. Like, I feel like after 4 years, the thing is, I just missed the tweets. Like, where is the tweets saying that he's the best jungler in LEC and that he's gonna come for everyone's head the next split? Like, all those have disappeared.
He would always tweet, like, he would tweet basically the way that, like, you would think PERKZ would. He would tweet, like, the LCS is not ready for me, I'm coming back. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're being one of the most all you do is, like, gank on level 3, you can't. What are you talking about? Like, you're not some next level player, are you? Why are you? That's the problem. I always said that. Like, I actually love the idea. It's just that the problem is he never had the game to live up to it, did he? Like, if you were going to talk shit like that as a jungler, you better be Jankos or something. You better be some beast jungler. Especially, you better be someone who takes over the game. Don't just be someone on like a Vitality or something. Give me a break.
Yeah, I mean, he was known for being not clutch, right? Like the whole thing when he was playing with Vitality was missing smites. He missed every crucial smite. It didn't even matter who it was. It didn't even matter if the enemy team had their jungler alive. It was just always somehow he would miss the smite on Baron. So you see all this stuff happen, and it's like, dude, this is the ego you have, or these are the things that you're saying when you're playing at this level. I don't know. I just couldn't take it seriously.
He has good branding. Now that you guys are talking about him, like
True,
he's
actually.
already succeeded. He's already succeeded. Why are you guys talking about him?
Honestly, he should just be a streamer.
No, that doesn't work because here's the problem, right? That's like that famous meme on the internet. You know the one where it's two stick figures and they're walking along, and then some guy comes past and he goes like blah 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 blah, blah, and then they go, "Who the hell's that retarded guy?" And then they go, and then he goes like, "Jokes on them. I was just pretending to be retarded." It's like just because we're talking about him now being terrible and saying that like his style almost works but doesn't. I don't know if that actually helps him in any way. Like I feel like I don't know if he ever gets. Do you think he actually gets recruited from his rep? I don't know if he does. I think people just recruit him because they've got no other junglers at the time.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think about it honestly. I don't. Yeah,
exactly.
Really,
so let's all just agree. The Gilius chapter of our lives is over until next time when he comes back and haunts another team. Maybe needs a jungler 1 second before the LCS. So until that happens, we're going to move on from Gilius, much like Schalke 04 did, and see you in about 2 years. Problem solved.
Leave poor Gilius alone.
Yeah, I mean, true.
I've got a question for you though, actually. Right? In general, I have been quite impressed with Caps because I thought just because of his style of play on mid lane that like AD would be the worst possible role for him because like I think of some of the weird like deaths that Caps would have in lane, some of the ridiculous plays he would go for, he would just die inexplicably, and you're like, is that really worth going for? Like generally, he hasn't done that at ADC, but I don't know if people saw this, but he did actually do it in this Fnatic G2 game. Because he did this, the death where he just goes right near their tower as close as he can,
and he doesn't flash the Lee Sin.
But it's also playing against Fnatic. Like you have to understand, like he has to play with his cookout, against.
Oh, he's trying to prove something,
like against his old team.
That was one of the most insane hints I've seen in a long time. I
would understand. I never played against a previous team, but if I was playing, like let's say if I was playing against Venomity right now, on stage, I would probably do the same. I would go on their face and I would if you roll up, like I can put myself in this position. Like you roll up, you're playing with Reckless for a long time. Reckless takes all the resources, all the kills, all the farm, all the glory, handsome Reckless, blah, blah, good Reckless, 70 KD Reckless, all these things. Mm-hmm. And then you're a Caps, and you're playing bot lane against him, and you're just like, you got 2 kills on him in early game, so you just want to go and hit him with the gun. I mean, I understand him. Like, I would do the same. Like, it just happens, It will probably not happen against other teams because I think he's playing really, really well. In general, like, he's just really stable, really solid on stage, and he's just great, yeah.
I think that's just the weirdest thing, though. Like, to Thorin's point, I have the same criticism where I just feel like AD carry is all about like discipline and refinement, and that was never his strength in mid lane, right? Like he was always the one that would just like have random deaths.
I think that's also like a bit of a meme, Like I think that.
Well, definitely earlier. I think this last one.
In the early, for like in season 7, like for sure. It was like,
wait a minute. I love it when players do this, right? Where they try and take our narrative and go, that's just a narrative. Let me just make my own narrative.
No, okay, it's true. Okay, I agree. But you guys made a narrative now, players. I mean, like people are sitting on the narrative because that narrative is from season 7. I mean, I'm going to defend him here, Okay. But in season 7, he was really he was a really big flipper, right? Yeah,
of course.
I agree. And then
he flipped versus you and won the first game he ever played.
Yeah, exactly. And he was next to. Okay, but that's another story.
Okay.
I've got a question.
Anyways, I think
go ahead.
9, like it's season 9 with our team. Like at least let's say, like he's had bad games, but it's not because he's like I don't think it's because he's flipping it, or like making like this really like confident play. It's just like some people. It's like it's a lot about draft as well, Like a lot of times he was actually playing like unfavorable drafts for him, or what I thought it was, but we were getting advantage on both sides up, So there's also about how much priority you get in draft and how much you actually play. And if you also look at our Worlds games, well, I guess minus the finals, like don't look at the finals. I think Caps is pretty consistent with his champs and with his plays. So also Milan, he's been playing through a meta where he has to play mages, like season 7 was all mages, and he was good in this meta. He was like people were saying that there was like the time it was like Power Evil and Fabian, right, and stuff, and Fabian was pretty good. Power Evil was like very overrated in my opinion at that time, and that Caps is still up there as good as them, who had a lot of experience with like his one split of experience, right, in the mage meta. So just he has a lot of experience, and mages, they're kind of like AD carries. Your job is to not die. Your job is to know when you're strong, so you can abuse your power spec, but it's still like an AD carry mindset when you play mages. And he was very good at them, and he was playing mages the whole world. So there's just like, even though he likes to test limits, and do stuff, it's mostly for solo queue. I think he's doing that. Maybe screams a bit as well. Maybe screams a bit too much right now as well. But I think he's just doing like really fucking good, So.
Do you remember last year in the summer when you had those really close finals against Fnatic?
Yeah.
Why the fuck do you think those games were so close? He was like MVP
I
of the team.
Literally, you took the words out of my mouth.
In my mind the whole time.
But it's also like, it's playing as Fnatic. Like, I mean, like for you can't understand that. There is like no way you can understand. I understand it. Like there's like a lot of emotions when you play with a team for 2 years and you play against the same 4 players, not 5, same 4, and the coaching staff, exactly what they want to do and how you have feelings against them with them. You've been through like many good times and bad times.
Sure.
So playing against them, he was for sure not playing well. I mean, I can say it, right? He knows himself. He was not playing well, and he was running it, and it's not like even like people were saying, yeah, Nemesis is playing so great. He's contesting Cups, but the truth was like when Cups played game 3, 4, and 5, it was like such a big mid difference. Like as soon as we like stepped up, it was the mid difference was like so huge that we couldn't even see the enemy mid laner. But people were making it out to be like Cups was getting shit on by Nemesis or something.
Well, I think it's just the way that it was looking, right? Because from an outsider's perspective, especially from like uneducated fans, you see Sylas versus Akali, and all the casters are just in your ear like, oh, this is such a good matchup for Sylas because he just takes Akali's ultimate and then he's just a better version of Akali. With better basic abilities. So that's the narrative that everyone has in the matchup, and then you just see him get solo killed by the Akali as Sylas, and it's just like, oh, well, he must just be playing like shit. So I guess that's kind of where it comes from.
Yeah, I guess it's also, it's also not, that's the thing about casters. Casters, a lot of times what they say is not always correct, right?
Of course. So
they build narratives like we do, like everyone builds, basically the world is so... thousands of narratives, but casters, they have like the biggest reach. They have narratives for everyone, right? So it was also a narrative in Springs, but yeah, PERKZ can't play AD carries, and like he can play only Lucian and Kai'Sa or something, but like can he play stun AD carries? Like all these narratives that like actually at that point right now, I'm over it, right? But at that point they actually like trigger me because they build my perception and my brand. They build the brand around my like what I'm supposed to play. That was something that triggered me like last year, and I was actually, even in spring, I remember, I don't know what I'm talking about this right now, but I'm going to keep talking about it. There was this one game that I was, we played against Kobe. I remember we played against Kobe, and he was playing Sever, and he got this all kill at the top tribush, And that game, they were getting so fucking shit on lane, and they were playing a winning matchup, by the way. I or like, at least they were not supposed to lose, but they were losing really, really hard. And we were playing really well, and we just threw the game, and like we didn't all turn on the same target. And after the game, it was like casters were saying, I don't know why I even listen to this, I don't actually listen to casters now.
We're like, Kobe's the best AD carry in Europe.
Kobe is so good, like he just solo carried the fight, he just completely outperformed PERKZ, blah blah, and he was like, just like when someone makes a mistake, he capitalized on it, right? But I'm not saying Kobe is bad. He was like one of the best ADs in Europe last year, right? But it's still, the whole narrative point still stands. Casters make narratives, and they can make player look either really good or really bad based on whatever they say. And that's something that will never change because that's how it is. But that's why we need like more casters who are actually not biased.
That's why we need the LCS co-streams with players and coaches that can actually say what the fuck is happening. That's what we need.
Yeah, the casual one was pretty good. Yeah. So maybe more in the future, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the last thing that I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you're ready to wrap it up. We've been here for like 2 hours. So one of the final things I wanted to talk about is with your team, how you plan on, this, you obviously don't have to say anything that you're not comfortable with, but last year, it was really obvious, even talking to your coach a little bit, that there was some burnout within G2, because when you're playing at the top level, you have to play MSI, you get no fucking break, and by the end, it's just a really tough year. So what is like the best way to help prevent burnout, and is the caps move part of the way to help prevent burnout, like giving something fresh to your team? Like, does that help at all with, having to relearn the game, relearn positions, everyone has to communicate differently, etc.?
Well, it's a very interesting topic because there's like couple of points where you could actually aim at. For example, the first one is if you're a successful pro player, on a successful team, your season is 11 months long, and that's very fucking long. Like even like the whole, like competing every single week, even if you play against useless teams, in LEC for useless matches regular season, it's still a competition, and you still don't want to be the worst player you can possibly be. You still have to play, and try hard, right? So it's a strain every single week, and that lasts for months, and then playoffs are obviously more annoying and more stressful. And you have very little off time because let's say for us, we played MSI and Worlds, right? So I think it also comes down on balance in life, throughout the whole year, having something you can do all the time besides league. For me,
going to the gym.
I go to gym and I play guitar and I like to read books and I like to socialize. So I have I feel like I have something to do besides league and even more discipline than previous years, right? So that's I'm feeling very, very happy and relaxed as of right now compared to previous years. And I think that's something that was just carrying on from players to players, from teams to teams, from putting pressure on yourself to play more, to stay on top of the league, right? But you don't actually always have to play 300 games a month, you don't have to play so much. You can just take it a bit slower and ramp it up when you need to ramp it up. I think it gets very hard when you get into this loophole of just constantly playing and playing and playing and playing and wanting to be the best on top of the game,
Yeah.
And I think how you balance it out is we are doing a very good step towards it this year. We are taking care of our diet more, and we basically went to Red Bull facility, and we had some tests there, some blood tests and stuff, and some body tests.
I watched the video.
It wasn't maybe, let's say, the great test for some of our members. So it kind of opened our eyes on how we want to approach this year as well. And so we're having team gyms that we go to gym together. So all of us are going to gym, and we are eating healthy, right? And in general, we are just, I think we are also a lot more familiar with each other now than we were last year, right? Because we've been together for a year. So we just know whenever how someone is feeling. So I just think even though for a lot of teams, it gets harder to be with each other after a long time because they have a lot of problems, and they keep it inside. I think for us, it's easy because we don't have any deep problems. We don't actually have problems that...
I mean, you don't have any big interpersonal problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a lot easier for us to work towards this goal that we all have in mind, and we just enjoy playing, living with each other, and just pushing towards the goal. And the Caps move, the me and Caps swap, is just one of the ways where we can actually even further even prevent further the burnout, because let's say right now, also it's an experiment for us. We don't know anything. We are as ignorant as the fans. We have some plans, maybe, some ideas what could potentially be with it, what could happen, right? But we don't know anything for sure. So we're just testing it out, and we see how it goes, with him playing bot lane, me playing mid. Then we see how does he enjoy playing bot, how does he feel like he can do in the long run, blah, blah, blah. Then we also see how is it for me, and then let's say, worst case, we lose the spring split, we don't go to MSI, we can just go back to our original roles from last year, right? And who actually, I mean, I don't care. The fans might care, but it's my life. I don't give a fuck what the fans think or what anyone else thinks or what the casters think. If we lose, it just might be the best possible thing for us. We might as just end up winning roles because of that. If we win, we might as well just roll up again in summer, and maybe we see how it goes when Caps playing mid. I, for example, learned a lot from Caps playing mid. Some people can't even grasp how much I learned from having my rival who played mid. He's a different player than me, similar but different. I learned some things from him that he did in the last year, right? And so same, if I play mid, he can for sure learn some things from me. And then maybe he can be an even better mid laner next split. So it's a competition that we compete against each other in a way, but it's also a teamwork because we are trying to just both win, and we both have to sacrifice something to actually play together. And it's just a super unique situation that we are dealing with kind of well, because we also talk about it. So it's prevents burnout because we are just very open to all possible outcomes. And yeah, even maybe for the future, I don't know if I mean, Milan, I'm gonna be frank with you guys, it's a stressful position. You actually have to be you have to be always competent and ready to carry. For bot, it's more of a chill position. You chill and you wait for your mid and jungle to do stuff, and you just don't make mistakes, right? So maybe at some point, if you're bootcamp, if you're screaming against Damwon, and we just can't play the fucking game because I'm just getting out-midded every game, maybe kha'zix, who has like not played mid and he's like completely fresh, he goes and plays mid and maybe win the next 3 games, I mean, everything can happen. We just have limitless possibilities with this, and I don't even see the downsides to it. The only downside is that if he just gets too burnt out learning a new role, because it is hard to learn a new role, and it's not easy, and it's fucking annoying, and I'm kind of sad that he has to go through it, but he also wanted to do it. So this is basically the easiest answer I could give to you guys.
I mean, I guess the one thing that people would say, I guess, regarding that would be, would you be afraid of like time loss? But it seems like from your answer, you don't really see it as time loss because you're still learning. Even if you're learning about different positions, you're still like teaching each other during the time that you're spending on each other's roles. But I guess the question that people would ask would be, do you feel like you're like, what happens if you spend 6 months playing a role and then you don't end up playing mid lane? So it's like, is that time just wasted? Like you go back bot and then he has to relearn the meta and maybe he's not as caught up because, there's new champions in the meta. Who knows? Like you're playing like set for example.
That's all bullshit. Like the league meta is like once you learn
changing.
It, like it's once you learn it, it's so easy to get back at it. Like there is like, for me, I missed whole year of playing mid, and the only champs I didn't play was Qiyana and Sylas. But Sylas was so fun, so I played it a lot in my solo queues on my Secret Smurf, like just spammed it, and it was really fun. But Qiyana didn't know. And Akali was like, everyone got good at Akali in Season 9. Season 8, when he got released at the end, everyone was better at her. So I had to catch up with Akali. There was 2 champs I had to catch up with. Even if kha'zix, in theory, has to go back to me and has to catch up, he has to catch up with Set, which is like such a brain and champ. You do bam, 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 bam. Like it's such an easy champ to play, So it's not really that hard to go back. And also, last year I spent so much time learning bot and like honestly mastering it that at any point, I mean, I have enough accomplishments to even say that I can come back bot at any point and be the best bot learner. Like it's not hard for me to do that. It's not hard.
I actually have a take on this whole angle, actually, which is I think the way he described it there was pretty good, because the part that I think's mad overrated about League of Legends is if you just look at the history of the game, take every single year where we had all these top teams in the West, realistically, the best possible thing that you can do if you want to win Worlds is have your entire year peak like the playoffs of summer. That's it. It's not be you could be the best team ever in the spring. You could be god at MSI. If your team has just an okay level when it comes to the summer playoffs, you're probably not going to do shit at Worlds. Like it just hasn't happened that many times. Like so, the real problem with the game is you're going to practice every week as though you will play for the World Championship. Try and be the best team you can. All those great things that people like cliches about practice and teamwork and dedication. But the game isn't really about that. It's really about being the best at like 2 or 3 moments in a whole year. And so, actually, if you looked at it like that, which is hard to do because most teams are just trying to be good now. Like forget they don't have the choice of when to be good. You almost should plan out like how you play. Like if you're like okay, so his team right now has won every single game in LEC. There might even be a logic to like maybe in 2 weeks you just take it a little bit lighter for a week because worst case scenario you can only lose 2 games, but maybe it means you have a second win going into.
That's something we were doing last year already. Like last year, like when we get qualified, like. For example, like group stage, when we went 5-2 at MSI group stage, like the last 3 games, we didn't really prepare. Like we didn't like put our efforts and our minds into like preparing for next 3 games that we are already in knockout. I mean, like we still wanted to win. We were like a beat 7, we lost, right? But it's not like we gave our all into preparing for these matches that are like in anyways useless. So it's for sure about regulating a lot. Like even yesterday we had like a talk about what happens if we go to MSI and how they want to approach bootcamp and stuff. And then it was just like, we have to have these talks in case it happens, because it is, on contrary to what a lot of people think, it's not a dream life to be a pro player, and it's very fucking hard. And it's for sure also very fun and entertaining, but it's very hard and it takes a lot of your like concentration. So, I mean, in one way to add to the rolls up is that it also gives us this sort of you know how one team changes the player in the middle of season? Let's say, for given Season 6 example, right? They got Freeze, and then he came back for summer, and they like kind of did well, and they did super good at Worlds. You know, they were not playing. They had a honeymoon phase, right? So we basically had a honeymoon phase every time we saw players. Because if there is a like there's a problem from previous roster. We just had to get a new roster with one simple swap. And we are working on a lot of our habits from last year, which now is easier to change because we do have a change. We anyways have a change, even though we have a same thing. So I just think this is like so 200 IQ that there's just no lose. It's just no lose situation. I don't see a lose situation in this situation.
Yeah,
it's just too good to be true. Yeah,
it's a good mentality.
And that's why I'm just grateful for like to have this possibility of having like a player that is as good as me that can do the same thing and we can both strive together. It's just like it's amazing. Yeah, it's not something anyone can do.
Yeah, definitely. So anything else you would like to talk about before we wrap it up here, Thorin or PERKZ?
I think it's pretty good.
Don't have anything specific, no. So
all right. Well, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I mean, you've been one of my favorite players for a long time, so it was an honor having you on our show together. So yeah, it was good having you. I hope the chat enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode. Peace out, guys.
Thank you for having me. Bye bye.
Peace.
GG.